Misumi Uika is a good friend and old friend to Sakiko. She's who Sakiko turns to when distraught, and surely she cares more for Sakiko than anyone. That's her role in this performance. After all, when she's suddenly asked to join Ave Mujika, Misumi doesn't even question it. A request from her best friend has to be honoured. It doesn't matter what the request may be, but does that make her a good friend? It isn't long into episode 1 before surprise quickly becomes admiration. She had no idea that Ave Mujika was so important to Sakiko until this moment. To Sakiko, this is more than important, it's everything. But Misumi doesn't know that. She may have known that if she had ever seriously asked about Sakiko's feelings, yet her role as a blind ally left her without any knowledge. Now, here we are, a familiar sight, where once Taki was shown leaning on a railing, staring at a Sumimi advert. Misumi now shows the same body language. Misumi isn't on the same page as her friend here. The music transitions into a song we all know well, a song of bonding. If this were Maigo, this would be where one of the two bore their soul, reaching out for mutual understanding, and yet this isn't Maigo. When Sakiko shows concern for Misumi, Misumi suppresses any negativity and, as a blind ally, shares appreciation for getting to be part of Ave Mujika, a rejection of Sakiko's doubts. When Misumi speaks that appreciation, a sudden phone call cuts her short. Sakiko has other things to worry about, and when Misumi shows concern for Sakiko, the response is, once again, rejection. They are lifelong friends, memories of happier times, precious and idolized. Negativity cannot enter this idealized relationship, so we're left with a duo of characters who refuse to be honest with one another. They are not on the same page. Sakiko means the world to Misumi, and yet there is so much that Misumi doesn't understand. Sakiko means the world to Misumi, but Ave Mujika means the world to Sakiko. The episode ends with Nyamu forcibly unmasking each of the members on stage. Misumi remains the only one unmasked. The attention turns to her. Sakiko shakes her head, "Don't do it." But in an act of betrayal, Misumi stands, removing the mask. This plan meant the world to Sakiko, but Misumi, unaware, smiles wide. She's on stage with the girl who matters more to her than the world. The main focus of episode 2 is everyone's favourite band destroyer, Mutsumi. Our poor girl is feeling the pressure. Her public life has been overtaken by the fallout of Ave Mujika's unmasking, and her bandmates don't seem to notice or care, nor does anyone in her life. Even that garden she was maintaining at school, her precious plants, have all died. But lying there in wait is everyone's greatest fear, an angry Sawyer. Their relationship at this point, if you could even call it that, is well and truly over. Instead, Mutsumi finds herself being dragged into a situation where her bandmates are at her house happily chatting with and fawning over her famous mother. The real point of interest I want to highlight comes in this scene set in the Wakaba family's house, when Mutsumi's mother tells the Ave Mujika members that they should practice here. She claims they had a studio put together, but the room doesn't get much use, so Mujika may as well use it. Hearing this, Mutsumi turns her attention to something in the background, and the camera follows suit. There, in the very studio that gets little use, is a worn-down chair that Maigo viewers will be quite familiar with. This is where Mutsumi plays her guitar. Her private place has been offered up to others with no regard for her own existence. It may not seem like much, but at this very moment, the last vestige of Mutsumi's life has been taken away from her. A worn-down chair has cracks, but it still functions. And there it sits, for no one to notice. Have a donut. That's what Misumi's partner from Sumimi, Mana, offers her during the tension of episode 2. Their relationship, as shown in the previous season, is one of dissatisfaction. Mana is the cheery one who loves snacks and tries to power on with positivity, while Misumi is shown as quiet, forlorn, exhausted, ever longing for something else. These two pass the time with pleasantries. They get along for sure, but their relationship is far from genuine. Still, have a donut. One half for you, one half for me. Then everything will be okay. In episode 3, Miss We've Got Soyo at Home smiles. Mutsumi just had a breakdown on stage, but the band got their PR sorted out and now Sakiko's living with Misumi, so phew, it's all over, happy ending. This positivity from Misumi, you could definitely view it as her way of cheering Sakiko up, but sadly for her, she's shot down. Sakiko feels that since she's known Mutsumi since way back when, she really should have taken care of poor Mutsumi better, given her more attention. Wouldn't that have been a nice thing to do? To this, Misumi fixates on only one thing. She's known Mutsumi since way back when. Indeed, Misumi is supposed to be Sakiko's childhood friend. That's her role to play, not Mutsumi's. But she can't air any of this jealousy because in this relationship, Misumi is the one to power on with positivity. Hey, maybe Sakiko wants a donut. Misumi just so happens to have some, stumbled upon them you could say. One half for her, one for Sakiko. Sakiko says no. In the puddle of a storm, a blue sky is reflected. A happy group of girls are shielded from the elements by a colourful assortment of umbrellas. This is where life took them. Krychik may be gone, but Maigo has found its way. Yet somewhere else, another storm begins. One all too familiar. Ave Mujika is falling apart, and the arguments happening around Mutsumi hit close to home. She's been in this exact position before, but the last time she was here, she wasn't as overworked as she currently is, wasn't as stressed as she currently is, and had none of the trauma. More than anything, there is one thing Mutsumi knows for certain. Her words, at the end of Krychik's long argument, were what sealed the deal. She can't be responsible for it happening again, but for some reason, everyone wants her to speak, to say something, to give her opinion. They always look to Mutsumi. At the end of it all, Sakiko and Mutsumi are left to talk alone, and before long, Sakiko is running away in tears. Cue the storm. In the rain, Mutsumi stands, no umbrella to shield her. She had one once, on the day Krychik broke up, but what could it have done? It couldn't save Sakiko, and it won't save her. This is simply where life took them. In a world of fantasy, the sky turns from dark to bright as a colourful assortment of umbrellas fills the sky, and an offer of salvation comes from an unlikely place, Mortis. Being Mortis was supposed to fix things. Accepting this role was how Mutsumi could make up for her past failings. This time, she would be there for Sakiko, holding the umbrella should a storm ever arrive. Instead, Mortis swallows her whole. With Mutsumi as the perfect excuse, Ave Mujika make their clean split. A message is sent. People in public and in private talk about what's happened in the month since. In some places, camera crews go hunting for interviews. Elsewhere, celebrities on a variety show gossip. A late-night radio show plays in an old bathhouse, and online, commenters flock to each and every article. The world is talking, and everyone can hear it. This depiction of the world is grounded by way of a realized physical camera. Here, for example, a camera looks through the window, and here it is placed upon a table. Now, the camera's on the floor. Throughout the episode, the camera is often placed within the environment. and these shots rarely pan or zoom or have any motion. They are quite still. Our main characters may be central to the story, but to the world, they are oh so small. They are little more than parts of the environment, to be looked at, to be judged. The passage of time is realised effectively by employing a combination of repeated camera angles filmed at different times of day, with frequent establishing shots that show the state of the city. When compared to the other episodes in the series, Episode 5 is incredibly well constructed. With a grounded camera, it brings to mind Episode 7 of MIGO. And with its focus on in-universe media to tell a narrative, Episode 8 of MIGO. It's a combination of two previously used techniques in order to make something new for a new purpose. It's important to remember that this world we're seeing is no original product for this show and this show alone, even this worldview. The presence of the MIGO cast members within the show has a major effect on the story, and to represent that, I would like to focus on this. At the very start of episode 2, Sakiko is at school. She grabs something from off-screen and, frustrated, she clenches it in her hand. Around 2 minutes later, the group from MIGO sit around a table discussing the unveiling of Ave Mujika's identities. There, sitting on a table before Tomori, is a pack of sticky notes shaped in her usual fashion. This, as of episode 1 it seems, is her newest hobby. She's collecting sticky notes. They're initially part of the background, and they're drifted from in this shot, where they slowly pan from the top right corner of the screen to beyond the frame. But when Sakiko becomes the focus of the conversation, the sticky notes take center of frame. I'm sure you've already put one and one together, but let this note stick in your mind as we continue on through the episodes. In episode 5, Sakiko receives call after call from the noisy old world, but she ignores all of them. Misumi does her best to shield her doll from the world, but eventually, Sakiko walks out and returns home. Misumi finds out through silent words. A note. And Sakiko, of course, isn't the only one giving these notes out. First, Sakiko drops a crumpled piece of paper at her home. Familiar. Then later, she opens her school locker to find a sticky note. It too gets crumpled up. There are a lot of voices in the world, but not all of them are equal. The voice of an overprotective friend may not mean much in comparison to the thousands of voices littering the media and filling the streets, so what value does any one voice have? In yet another callback to the walk home, Taki bids Tomori farewell. Tomori, of course, has been worrying over Sakiko since the end of the last season, and now it's time for her to speak. She does so while contemplating the meaning of happiness, and as you'd expect, the Song of Connection begins to play. If the parallels between Tomori and Misumi weren't already on your mind from the previous season, you better get them ready now. While Misumi goes asking old bandmates for updates in a roundabout fashion if they've heard from anyone, any of the members, maybe Sakiko, wink wink, Tomori goes directly to the source, every day. And when her own efforts aren't enough, she has other meaningful relationships with other people who can help her, who are willing to help her. Tomori has Anon. She has Taki, she has Soya, and Rana's there too. As singers and as people, Misumi and Tomori couldn't be any more different. Tomori's songs, as well as her actions, are a gateway into her heart. But Misumi Uika sings cheery pop songs with a groupmate that she only superficially knows. So, what value does one voice have in the cacophony of fans, news outlets, and drama fans? Well, it depends on the voice. Cast your mind back in time, very far, in fact. In episode 12 of My Girl, Mutsumi congratulates the band by silently leaving a fancy bag from a posh chocolatier in their room. Though the fancy bag may be a sign of a careless child born into wealth, inside it was the result of Mutsumi's hard work. She had been growing these cucumbers throughout the show's duration, and the garden she grew them in was where Soya would usually go to find her. Grumpy old Soya, of course, chased after Mutsumi and rejected her show of kindness, bag and all. Now, cast your mind back in time once again to this very analysis. Even that garden she was maintaining at school, her precious plants, have all died. Mutsumi's plants died at the start of Ave Mujica, and it's hard to imagine she's been able to grow them again in the state that she's in. Even so, in episode 7, Soya arrives at the Wakaba family house, and on her person is a familiar bag from a posh chocolatier. Inside it, a handful of misshapen cucumbers, clearly grown by someone with less skill than Mutsumi. Both the bag and the cucumbers had to have come from somewhere. Right, Soya? The fact is, Soya used and disrespected Mutsumi for an entire 13-episode series. And remember, this girl was a manipulator. The fact is, Ave Mujica introduces their dynamic by having Soya angry at Mutsumi. But the fact is, when Soya learned Mutsumi was in a bad state, she was the first one to care. And when she learned that Sakiko was actively distancing herself from Mutsumi and wiping her hands clean of it all, Soya was pissed. But when given the opportunity to reunite Krychik for Mutsumi's sake, Soya states the reality of things. How much the sight of two characters hugging can change in meaning.
どちらにせよ、この状況も長くは続きませんわ。長くは続かない。
As the show is so absorbed in giving her all of the screen time, why don't we cover a repeated theme by first talking about Mutsumi? Or Mortis? Or maybe I should say, everybody that she tries to be.
アベムジカにふさわしい曲を書いてみせますわ。
Krychik is gone because of Mutsumi. That's how she feels about it, and it's a conclusion that Soya and Sakiko also arrive at by the end of My Girl. But why? Because Soya wanted an ally, putting Mutsumi on the spot. On the other side of that conflict was Mutsumi's best friend, the very girl who would go on to say this. Ave Mujica is gone because of Mutsumi. That's how she feels about it, and it's a conclusion that other members of the band arrive at by the end of their breakup. But why? Because the members needed an ally, putting Mutsumi on the spot. It's important to note that Mutsumi isn't the only one to blame, and she isn't the only one being blamed along the way. That's not the case. But it always ends with her. She's the player that decides the game, an imaginary scenario that conveniently bottles up all that came before it into a singular event. People will point the finger at Sakiko for being selfish and refusing to communicate. People will point the finger at somebody else for not practicing, or another for having limited time, but when it comes to the absolute statement, who ruined this band, the answer is, of course, Mutsumi. But we are long past all that, and yet, for whatever reason, Mutsumi is still in the spotlight. The responsibility is still hers. She's still the primary excuse, but the topic has changed. Now, we need to reform Krychik, for Mutsumi's sake. I mean, no, we need to reform Ave Mujica, or do you want Mortis to die? It's almost convenient that one individual can be the scapegoat for two opposing sides, isn't it? Similarly, Mutsumi is an excuse for Nyamu to hate acting, but also to love acting. She's an object her mother fears, but that drives her mother to further success. She's a well-timed reason for Sakiko to abandon all of her responsibilities and mistakes, to start over. And yet, this is just one character, but as is always the case, the theme resonates throughout the cast. We just got done talking about Soya, so let's do a speedrun of her responsibility. Soya was a liar, who only cared about her own feelings. She claimed she would do anything for Krychek, and yet she wasn't the kind of person who'd be able to do so. As Sakiko so aptly criticized, Soya wasn't capable of taking responsibility for someone else's life. But after all of her growth, Soya is the one to care for Mutsumi. When everyone else around Mutsumi is either ignoring or nonchalantly accepting her, to be frank, insane mental condition, Soya is the one who takes responsibility. But a coin is two-sided, and the one who initially criticized Soya's selfishness is just as guilty of it. Sakiko is a straightforward lady who made bold demands. Now, let me ask you, could the Sakiko who asked this question take responsibility for another person's life? Did she? She worked hard, no one can deny her efforts, but in doing so, she ignored everything around her. Prior to Ave Mujika's breakup, Sakiko was working incredibly hard for her father's sake. But do we ever see them talk? Not argue, not preach, talk. No, Sakiko closed the door on the drunkard's room and continued to work aimlessly, because it was the easy answer. Communication is a two-way street, and you'll never see it if you drive a different road. But it's okay, Sakiko was just too busy. Now Ave Mujika is in full swing. Sakiko is living with Misumi, but every attempt at conversation Misumi tries to make is cut short. You see, Sakiko is just too busy. Mutsumi is clearly struggling, some other members of the band notice but don't mention it, and Sakiko, does she notice? She does, once, when Mutsumi has a breakdown on stage, and then Sakiko moves on, problem over. But you have to understand, Sakiko is just too busy. To me, that doesn't sound like someone who can take responsibility for another person's life. When all is done, no father to worry about, no Mujika to manage, all the free time in the world, Sakiko begins talking with Krychek members and treating Mutsumi with some respect, because, you see, she's not busy anymore. But where is Uika? Where is Nyamu? Where is Umiri? Weren't you supposed to be responsible for the rest of their lives? And hey, let's keep this triangle of blame going, shall we? Mortis is Mutsumi-chan's one and only ally. That's how she introduces herself, and it's what she preaches. But it's not exactly true, is it? The claim of being Mutsumi-chan's only friend, the only person she can trust, quickly falls apart when self-interest gets involved. It all went wrong when Mutsumi-chan started playing guitar. Then Sakiko made Ave Mujika, which saved Mortis, so it's Sakiko's fault that Mutsumi is suffering. But you should keep doing Ave Mujika because it'll make Mutsumi happy. But also, Ave Mujika makes Mutsumi suffer, so let's keep Mortis in charge, okay? I mean, it'll stop Mortis from dying, and that's the important thing, right? Yep, Mortis is Mutsumi-chan's greatest ally. But man, life is hard for Mortis, and it's all Mutsumi-chan's fault. Pick a character and point a finger. It's so easy to do. Far easier than thinking calmly and taking responsibility for your own life. In episode 10, after reading some lyrics written by Misumi about Sakiko, Nyamu submits them to Ave Mujika's group chat. Then, in her typically confrontational manner, she drags Misumi to Sakiko's house. Nyamu's most transparent goal in meeting with Sakiko is to reunite Avimushika. Like the Soya of old, she's willing to manipulate a Takitomori parallel in order to get the band back together. But in saying that, I've lied to you. Nyamu isn't like the Soya of old at all. Nyamu's transparent goal is in reuniting Avimushika, and yet the conversation with Sakiko brings forth a question. Did you read the lyrics? Rika wrote them about you. It's a couple lines of dialogue in a scene of others, merely a lead-in to a larger talk, right? But when it's time to leave, Nyamu heads out first to give Misumi time to talk with Sakiko. And when they reunite outside of the household's fancy gates, Nyamu says one thing, and one thing only. A question in a kind voice.
言いたいこと言えた?
In Nyamu's world, confrontation is the patent of love, of all kinds. The love Mutsumi's mother feels for her daughter, jealousy. The love Misumi feels for Sakiko, desperation. And the love Nyamu feels for her family, perfectionism. The desire to be what the other person wants, that is Nyamu. She works hard to be a sister her siblings can be proud of, a daughter her mother can be proud of, and to be able to believe in the vanity of such desires, to believe in herself. Love is a continuous struggle of hard work and self-set goals, and that is who Nyamu is. She's a girl who picked up a drum set for views online and then never quit practicing. Along the way, she'll have surely complained and judged herself harshly, as she does with her acting and with her video content, but that is what fuels her. Jealousy, desperation, perfectionism. These are negative emotions, in part, but as part of a whole, they are love, and love leads us to do incredible things. To take a beating, only to rise. To be trampled on, only to become stronger. Nyamu grows as a person through conflict and hard work, and by instilling others with the confidence to face conflict and work hard, yes, sometimes even through manipulation or provocation, she spreads the happiness of love to others. Nyamu is the heart that keeps the dolls moving. Its beat, a drum. In episode 8 of Maigo, Soya is in the middle of acting as if everything is fine, while an onlooking Mutsumi worries. In my previous analysis, I pointed out how Mutsumi was the one most aware of Soya's social cues that gave her true emotions away. She looks at it. Look, she can tell. This girl knows. Mutsumi could always tell when Soya was acting. And that's an interesting parallel, given that Avimushika has Nyamu learn the same thing with Mutsumi. Nyamu can tell when Mutsumi is acting. But that is not the best detail in this scene. The best detail is the music. The scene begins with a focus on Soya and a string-led song plays, bright and happy. But when we cut to Mutsumi's perspective, the tone changes dramatically. Instead of strings, we get a xylophone. This sound, which I personally associate with a sort of creepy play park, it plays alone until Soya enters the scene. And the usual instruments from the previous song take over, slowly pushing the toy box sounds out of the scene. With knowledge from Maigo alone, we can all very well cotton on to the attribution of instruments here. Mutsumi's musical identity is this creepy innocence, and she is overpowered by Soya's bold instrumentation. I even used a similar song for Mutsumi's section in the video version of my Maigo analysis. Speak of the devil, start of episode 10, Mutsumi is walking through... Wait, hang on. Who is this? But we had no way of knowing why Mutsumi had that sound profile, until, of course, Ave Musica.
むつみちゃん？また眠れないの？
Suddenly, the isolated sound of Mutsumi coming across like a creepy carnival, and that off-puttingly innocent childishness associated with these kinds of sounds makes a whole world of sense. Oh, and by the way, there's actually a reverse version of this scene. It's in episode 4. This time, Soyo watches as Mutsumi, who is now Mortis, happily chats to her classmates. The worried Soyo shows a familiar response. Let's continue that theme. What else changes now that we know what we know about Mutsumi? In episode 2 of Maigo, Mutsumi follows Sakiko home from school, and the two end up chatting at a cafe. After asking Mutsumi to lie about something, Sakiko says this of the young actor.
むつみにはそんな芸当できませんわね。
By this, she means that Mutsumi doesn't have it in her to lie or pretend. What a fun little detail, knowing all we know. The following line from Sakiko, "Don't turn yourself into a carrier pigeon," held great meaning in that original series. But in Ave Musica, it has been redefined or warped into meaning something completely different. Mortis is the carrier pigeon, the one who people go to when they want to talk to Mutsumi. But for a more direct reference, look to episode 2, when Mutsumi freezes on stage and ruins the live performance. Sakiko clutches her arm, a common bit of body language, while giving another "Mutsumi isn't capable of that" speech.
それでごまかしもせず固まっていたということですか？
むつみはごまかすなんてできませんわ。
そっか。
さきちゃんもすごいね。すぐに反応できて。
A flexible actress, Sakiko believes her not to be. Oh, and here's some arm clutching from Sakiko. First when Krychik breaks up, then when she drops out of Tsukinomori, then when she learns about Mutsumi's public breakdown, and finally, when Mortis is taken away after revealing that Mutsumi is gone, and the rest of the Krychik members and Anon give chase, leaving Sakiko behind to pass the news. As a final point of focus, and this is just a random detail that definitely doesn't mean anything, wink wink, but I want to bring it up anyway, for my own indulgence. If I had to describe Misumi Uika in a single word, using only my knowledge from Maigo, I would say she is boyish.
伝わるといいね。
She's a tomboy. She speaks like one, and she behaves like one. One thing that was fascinating about the character to me was that throughout Maigo, Misumi has multiple scenes, at least a few full conversations, yet somehow she never says a single personal pronoun in any of her dialogue. There are only 2 instances of pronoun usage relating to the character at all. In that long ago text, when Misumi was very excited, she used watashi, as you'd expect. And the other instance is in her initial depiction as a doll in Maigo's finale, where she plays an amnesiac attached to the male pronoun boku.
僕が人形だって。だって僕は生きてるじゃないか。君たちも。
Her previous friend, or owner, it's claimed, hasn't been in contact with her for a long time, so it's safe to say this doll was discarded, and thus is dead. In this death, the doll is reborn as Dolores, taking on a new identity as one who does not fear sorrow. This iconic speaking style of Misumi's remained consistent in the first episode of Ave Musica.
初披露があります。
うみりちゃんのスケジュール表見やすくて助かる。
but from episode 2 onwards, she progressively begins using watashi more and more frequently.
ういちゃん大丈夫？私は大丈夫だよ。
帰ります。
私、自分勝手なこと言って。
Even when it is, at times, unnecessary.
私のバカ。
Maybe this is a portrayal of growing vulnerability. Or maybe this is her finally prioritizing self-satisfaction over distant comfort. Like a moon, tired of forever reflecting the sun's light. Maybe, like Dolores, she simply doesn't want to be abandoned. She's no longer happy to watch on from afar, never being an important individual in the lives of those she cares about. The thing about patterns is they are everywhere. Some were placed with intent, but others were mere accidents. To know which is which and to ascribe meaning to which is what the world calls analysis. I think a more accurate phrase would be fanfiction. Not everything is a puzzle, and not every puzzle has a solution. But if we keep pointing out patterns, maybe, just maybe, it will inspire the puzzle makers, the problem solvers, and every writer to carry on.
Christmas was all my joy. Christmas was my delight. Christmas was my heart of gold and food, but my lady Queen's Reeves.
In an abstraction of the past, we get a glimpse into Misumi's world. She parades on stage to an audience of none, giving us her full backstory. And that is most of the episode in a nutshell.
島の漁師だったよ。
In this performance, ambient noises like the rustle of trees
怖くない？
ウイカが一緒ですもの。冒険の始まりのようでワクワクしますわね。
or the hiss of cicadas
夏が来た。
make up most of the soundscape, with a slightly distant, live-sounding musical performance sometimes entering or leaving to accentuate the emotional weight of certain memories.
戸川咲子。同じ戸川の子なのに祝福され幸せに暮らしている。
I don't really have anything to say about the whole package, but something in the background really caught my eye. As this performance is playing out, images are being projected onto the curtains in the background. Through this, we get to see quite clearly what Misumi sees in the world. When reflecting upon her parents, we get this: silhouetted faces like masks lacking personality. The backgrounds are always detailed and full of life, but the people look empty. To this, you may be thinking, well, one of these characters doesn't have a 2D design, and the other character was a lot younger then. Maybe they just didn't have time to make these designs in full. But then we see Uika, a character who has a design already made for this specific age of this specific character. We've seen it before, alongside the very Sakiko design that next appears in the background. No silhouette, just an ordinary girl. For you see, when recalling her childhood, there are only two faces that remain. Do you know who those faces belong to? It's not Mana, not Sakiko's father, not anybody, even those who walk the streets. She sees her own face and Sakiko's. The world beyond them is of nature, of stars, and of meaningless shadows. So what is it that Misumi isn't seeing in the world? Well, the people around her. In the puddle of a storm, the past is reflected. This is where life has taken Sakiko. In the rain, Sakiko stands, an umbrella to shield her, but in the gust, of a passing plane, the umbrella gets swept up and carried into the sky. In her search for a runaway Misumi, Sakiko returns to the island of her childhood and discovers what's really going on. There she finds Misumi, and the two finally sit down to talk. Their relationship, as shown throughout the season, is one of dissatisfaction. Uika is the cheery one who loves snacks and tries to power on with positivity, while Sakiko is shown as quiet, forlorn, and exhausted, ever longing for something else. These two pass the time with pleasantries. They get along for sure, but their relationship is far from genuine. But the Misumi in episode 12 isn't Uika. Misumi here isn't a cheery girl and isn't the one to power on with positivity. Sakiko is. With a forlorn singer at her side, Sakiko turns to the railing and shouts her complaints into the sky, their usual roles now reversed. In this honest dialogue, the two characters face one another, finally listen to one another, and their relationship, after so many years, is finally made genuine. It was a long journey to get here, from one storm to another. It's fitting then that Spring Dawn talks of waking up on a spring morning after a rainy night, the author pondering how many petals fell in the storm. If all of that hasn't made it obvious, episode 12 is really best described as the resolution before the resolution. It's the build-up to the final performance, and as part of that build-up, the director seeks to resolve a bunch of repeated elements thus far. We've seen all of this before. This is the final analysis, the 26th piece to be exact. In this show about bands, we've gone 25 chapters without talking about a live performance. We've brushed past some before and skirted around others, but I'd like to finally focus on this element of the production. To accompany something with music, you require dynamics. This could be motion, for example, pulling you along to the rhythm of a song, but the effect that motion induces in a viewer can also be obtained via a still image. A dynamic image is one that sweeps across the frame, where the lines of a drawing are easy to trace with your eyes, delivering one smooth motion. Motion is what matters. Motion is music, and episode 13 is all about motion. We begin with a back and forth between bands, Maigo and Mujika, with these repeated match cuts. It's a bit cheesy, but it establishes the focus of the episode. This episode is a music video. The next trick in the book comes when the camera pans left, sending us from a Mujika scene to a Maigo one. Soya and Anon then walk along the frame from right to left, continuing the motion that the camera had set. It's all one continuous flow. To highlight the other key element of dynamic cinema, let's talk about accentuation. Think of a song that at times has you swaying from left to right, but at other times has you bobbing your head. The difference between focusing on melody and percussion is one easy example of this. In animation, the same stylistic switch of focus is achieved by briefly disrupting the motion with static cutaways. With bad storyboarding, this could feel incredibly clunky, but like I said earlier, a static image can still be dynamic. Motion can still exist without any animation. It can exist in the lines of a drawing. Look at how these cutaways sweep across the screen. By doing this, they build anticipation, like the build in a song. Let's combine the two techniques. Maigo's performance begins, the music kicks in, but the style remains consistent. For this shot, the camera is in the audience, and the motion of the camera takes us from right to left. Then on the next cut, the motion is interrupted by a very brief static image with the dynamic lines sweeping across the frame that then continue naturally into an animated sequence when a boot kicks into the frame. This boot, as you can see, slams down, splitting the motion with impact, allowing the next shot to follow that vertical movement by panning the camera upwards. All of these techniques are what we refer to as a collection when we simply say that something flows well. But one false frame is all it takes to break the sequence. One false note is enough to disrupt your performance. And much like Mutsumi, not many people are capable of smoothing over something like that. In every great song lay meaning and motion, and in every great scene the same is true. For the members of MIGO, and for the members of Ave Musica, this episode is their great, ambitious performance. For the members of MIGO, for the members of Ave Musica, and for the ones who made this series. This scene, at the very end of the show, is their big performance. Man, what a great final episode that was. Really, there was so much MIGO, so much Rana doing all the fun stuff you'd expect Aoki Hina to do at one of their lives. That's my favourite part of their performances. Now, that may have been the final formal section of this analysis, but before we end, there are a few small things I think are worth mentioning. The contents of this analysis were published part by part while the show was airing, and as such, the contents of Section 3, for example, were written with no knowledge of episodes 4 and onwards, but with all the knowledge of episodes 3 and prior. That means any like future references that come from those sections, purely accidental. As Mujika already had 13 episodes of MIGO to pull from, I thought it would be more entertaining to focus on what exactly each new episode is adding to the established media. Like with the MIGO analysis, this isn't meant to be a retelling of the plot or a review of the show, nor is it about the mobile game or the music videos, but it's a look at the things I found interesting enough to talk about, while ignoring all the obvious stuff. And also, as this is a sequel as well as a mystery show, I imagine the average viewer is more focused on analysing the show than they would have been for MIGO, so I elected to ignore most of the more obvious points of analysis. Ave Musica ended up being a bit of an awkward show to deal with, because it's a show that loves to explain itself. It wants to be obvious. I mean, we have things like, what's going on with Mutsumi and Mortis? How does Umari's backstory manifest in her actions? Those traffic lights don't look right. Hey, what's up with the Togawa family? How do the MIGO members relate to Ave Musica's dolls, Taki and Amaris, Mortis and Rana, and so on? I think all that stuff is very straightforward. You've probably already come to your own conclusions. Why is each member given the name, the doll, that they are? Umari's responses really escalate from indifference to attachment, don't they? Isn't it interesting how the characters with wealth and privilege eventually seem to get dragged down by responsibilities and expectations? Those and more were topics I wanted to cover. The sad fact is, I wrote much more than this, but because of my chosen release format, I would write a section for 1 week, then inevitably the show would have characters directly explain something to the audience or string together flashbacks in order to spell everything out, and it would invalidate the need for analysis. So a lot of already written analysis got cut as the show progressed. So if you're disappointed by how short this video is or why I didn't cover certain sections, don't worry, I am too. Let's just blame Mutsumi, everyone else does it. The thing is, everything has a story, every little element of the show. This video could go on forever. As a writer, a Tomari, a Misumi, I have to agree that every single star in the sky has a name, and each one has been gazed upon by someone at some point. We can't know all of them. We can't tell all of them. Some stars shine bright, gathering attention of their own volition, like Vega. We can all find it, if ever we care. But to me, the greatest joy is in finding a star that shines unnoticed. I don't know if everyone watching this will appreciate the same night skies that I do. Still, beyond the brightest star is an ocean of lights. Beyond the obvious, there is brilliance. More fun than a flashy performance, more fun than some edgy expressions, and more fun than the drama of the stage is the second when nothing happened, and no one will notice it shine. I imagine this show will be a divisive one, but there is always something to appreciate if you're willing to look for it. Instead of looking to anger, it is so much nicer to appreciate, and I hope everyone who's willing to look for it will stay sweet, keep smiling, and be good.